morning, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend. Got to see the family, had some good food, relaxing time. So hope you're ready to hit it here. We got some fun stuff to cover today. First is a reminder, 5Q tape breakdown came back last week. Never do commercials at the end of a disclosure meeting. Take a listen to see what can happen when you do. So you can do a perfect disclosure meeting, but then if you start talking to people about because normally at a end of a disclosure meeting, people might ask, well, what do you recommend? And remember, we began that meeting with that we were going to recommend something or that we weren't going to recommend something. The beginning of the disclosure meeting, of the 21-point checklist meeting, we start with saying, hey, I'm not going to have any recommendations because I don't know what you like and I don't know what you don't like. And we get to our agreement up front of that meeting. So at the end, when they say, well, what are you going to recommend? You say, recall when we first started the meeting, we said, what? I would have recommendations, I wouldn't. Why is that a good idea, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. So it gets you out of it. But instead, we pop back into the way we were trained. That is, if somebody asks, about a product, let's jump in and sell it to them. Guess what that does to that hour and a half or 2 hours you spent on the 21-point checklist? They said, during that whole meeting, like, this guy is a consultant. This guy is here to help me. This guy really cares. He's doing things he doesn't even get paid for. I love this guy. And then in 10 minutes, you start selling your proposal, and they think, this guy actually is a salesman. I didn't shoot. He had me fooled for a little bit. So, and this breakdown kind of walks through exactly that very thing with an advisor and a client. So, are we living in the roaring 20s? Are we living in the roaring 20s? So this is the 20s, and look at what happened. Up and down, up and down, up, and then zippity-doo-dah from 20 to 29, 9 years of straight up. And we know what happened after that. So I'm going to make the case that we got our roaring 20s. Net worths in this country are at all-time highs. The stock market, we're reminded every single day now, is at all-time highs. Housing prices are at all-time highs. Economic activity is at all-time highs. The unemployment rate has been below 4% for more than 2 years. You can even earn 5% on your cash. Even though the stock market is high, you can earn 5% on your cash. Now some of this is simply numbers going up, but there's more to it than that. People are spending money like crazy. So we're hearing these two things, and not us. Everybody in society is hearing two things, which is what? The economy's in shambles. I mean, do you hear that on the news, or the gas prices are so high, grocery prices are so high, the economy's in ruin. We've never been in a worse situation than we are right now. And yet, when we look at this, we're what? Doing unbelievably well. So why is that dichotomy in viewpoints happening? And what can that cause? Well, people are spending money like crazy right now. Look at the massive jump in retail sales from pre-pandemic levels. So here's pandemic, and obviously people quit buying stuff. But now, what have people been doing? What have people been doing since the COVID? Spending money. Even after accounting for inflation, people are spending way more money on food these days. Way more money on food. And it's not just grocery. We hear complaints about grocery costs are so high, and yet look at what's happening. Grocery is the orange, and dining out is the blue. So if prices were so high, why are people spending a hell of a lot more money going out than they are going to the grocery store? So what are these things telling us? Because where is this money coming from that people are dining out with? Where is this money coming from that people are spending money? Where is this money coming from? Is it coming from their wages, or where is it coming from? What is up? We talked about highest of all time. What else is not on this list that's the highest of all time? You got it, Alfred. Yeah. What else is the highest? Yeah, anybody else get it? So Mr. Hicks got it. So what else? Yes, Andre. Credit card is also the highest of all time. So people are spending money like they wouldn't get go. And past people. We just heard on the today on the news. I was watching the morning news. we've set a new record for one-day travel on airplanes. And is that free or does that cost money? So all these things are at all-time highs. People are spending money like they wouldn't believe. Does that sound like the Roaring 20s, guys? And then what happened to the Roaring 20s? Well, look at when we compare the Roaring 20s here to what's currently happening. So if we go back to 1910 or go to 1995, do these graphs look similar at all? So this is the 1920s. This is current. How similar do they look? And guys, we know the market average is what? What's the market average? Depending on from what to what? 7 to 10, right? 7 to 10, depending on what long period of time you look at it. 7 to 10, 7 to 10. And yet, the last 3 years, what's the market been doing? 7 to 10 or way more than that? Way more than that. We're talking like 28%, 24%. I mean, and then we had the little downward of 13% in between there. But it's been averaging, hasn't been averaging more than 7% from here to here. Hasn't been averaging more than 7% from here to here. A lot more. So again, we know the market does what? It gives and it what? Takes. So to get back to a more normal rate of return, it's going to have to do what eventually? So guys, if this graph doesn't scare you, I don't know what would. Hey, I love the fact that all these things are happening, but these things are happening who? Are happening. These things are helping who? Not happening who. These things are helping who? Stock market at all-time highs, houses at all-time highs. Who is that helping? People moving their money into the market now, buying a house now, or people who moved their money into a market 15 years ago and bought a house 15 years ago? Because right now, do you want to be buying a house? Do you think it's going to just scream up in value? Right now, do you want to be in the stock market at all-time highs? So, guys, I understand. Hey, I am like anybody else. You're like, oh, my God, what am I missing? What am I missing? I got to get in the market. I am emotionally the same as everybody else. When the market's going crazy, you want to do what? Geez, if I would have mortgaged my house and bought a crappy car and put every single cent I had in the market, how much money would I have right now? Wow. Yeah, well, if you'd invested here, not if you'd invested here. Because right now, should we be in? Hey, that doesn't mean that the market won't go up here. But eventually, it's going to have to do what? Is it going to keep doing this? No. It's going to what? Come back. And remember, when we looked at the CAPE, at the Shiller PE, we've only been overvalued more overvalued than we are right now for about 6 months over the last 100 years. So only about 6 months have the market been more overvalued than it is right now. So guys, we are not that far from, after every single roller coaster ride up, there's a roller coaster ride down. So I'm not saying take all your money out of the market. I'm saying now is the time to what? You shouldn't take all your money out of the market. Do I ever encourage you to take all the money out of the market? No. You should what though? Make sure your clients are what? Rebalanced. Because making them a ton more money isn't going to change their lives. Losing them 30, 40, 50%, that's going to change their lives. So think about rebalancing, getting back to that 50-50, 40-60, 60-40, 30-70, 70-30, get back to a more reasonable level with your clients' portfolios. Make sense? So today I want to talk about grit. What is grit? Grit is to have determination and courage to push through any challenge or obstacle thrown in your way until you succeed. Guts, resilience, initiative, and tenacity. So I'm going to pull from a couple of different resources on this. So one was an Insurance News magazine. It says, Grit, Embracing the Daily Grind in Pursuit of Your Goals. And then also this book from Angela Duckworth, Grit. This is a fantastic book. If you ever want the power of passion, perseverance, if you ever are serious about getting better in life, this is a fantastic book to read. So fundamentals of grit, they include the ability to lose. Guys, if everything was easy and we never lost, you wouldn't need grit, right? If you had this yellow brick road to riches and happiness, you wouldn't need grit. But you know what? None of us have those kind of lives, or very few of us have those kind of lives. So we're going to face things in our life where we lose. They also include the ability to learn. When we lose, we have to do what? Learn from our mistakes, learn from our losses. Then we have to adjust. Learning is not enough. You have to implement that. So it's adjusting. And then we have to attempt it again and again and again. I think it's about 5 years ago I talked about this. There was a guy who did a study on billionaires. And what did all of these billionaires, every single one had this characteristic. What did all billionaires have in common? What did all billionaires have? I think he interviewed like 25, so I shouldn't say all. The 25 billionaires he interviewed, what did they all have in common? Well, in a sense, bankruptcy, you're right. They all had failed. They all had failed. Now, here's the thing, though. When they failed, what did they do? They tried again. But where did they try again? So let's say that they were, just for example, they wanted to start an ice cream company, and they failed at that ice cream company. What did they go and do then? Did they go and try to get into the car business? Did they go and try to get into the fitness business? Did they go and try to get into the pharmaceutical business? If they failed at ice cream, where did they go back and try again at? Ice cream. Because if you didn't go back and go try again at that same exact industry that you failed at, all the things you learned are not going to be very applicable. So they all had tried and failed at their particular business that had made them a billionaire. Because that's when they lost their business, they learned from that, they adjusted, and then they tried it again. And then they tried it again, and they tried it again, losing, learning, adjusting, losing, learning, adjusting, until they finally figured it out. That's exactly what I did. Remember, 8 years of making $50,000 a year. And then when I started to make changes, record my meetings, use motivational interviewing, the first year I went from 50,000 to 356, so that was a sevenfold increase. Then I doubled again, went from 350 to 667, then to 967. So I got better and better and better because I was learning from the mistakes that I made. Most of my learning went that first year when I had a sevenfold increase, and then a little bit more when I doubled my income, and then a little bit more when I got up 50% more. But I was always listening to my tapes, figuring out what I did wrong, learning from that, and adjusting until I got the 21-point script checklist, 21-point checklist script where it is today. Does that make sense? Do this until your goal is achieved. Now, not all of us want to be billionaires. Not all of us want to make $1 million a year, but figure out what your goal is, and this is the way you're going to get to that goal. And the way I did it with my tape, recording my meetings, figuring out what I did wrong, I learned from that, adjusted, and did that over and over and over until it worked. So one of the things you can do until you're use grit for is the 21-point checklist. This is a lot to learn, but guys, this is your oyster. This is your key to the kingdom. This is the way you can make as much money as you want, whether you want to make $300,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, $2 million a year. This script will do it for you. Why? Why? Somebody answer this question. Why will this script make you, and again, $2 million a year is very achievable, because I made $1 million a year in a town of 100,000 people surrounded by an hour and a half of farmland in every direction. And I did it when there was almost, with teachers and engineers and nurses. All three of those entities had pensions at that point. So they weren't putting nearly as much money into the market as they are today, because the nurses, the engineers, and the teachers still have pensions, but the nurses and the engineers don't anymore. And also, people have way more money to invest today. So I could easily seeing the same people that I saw 20 years ago would be $2 million a year. Why? Why does this script allow you to make anywhere from where you want to make up to $2 million a year? How? Come on, guys. We talk about these scripts every single week. Why do these scripts get people to move all their money to you, not 50% of the time. And it gets people who had no clue, no desire whatsoever to move their money to you when they first started this process to move their money to you. Why? The process works. Why does the process? Yeah, that's right. But why does this process? Yes, their guy intentionally screwed them. And who tells them that? Us or them? They tell themselves. That's why it works. Or if you want to make a goal of making $1 million a year, well, then train on the scripts. Visualize your meetings. So this is how you have grit. Train on whatever you want to get better at. Visualize doing well at that, whether you're playing football, your golf game. What have they found I haven't talked about this for a while either. When they have done studies, and this study has been duplicated so many times, two groups of people, they both want to get better at shooting free throws. One gets on the court and shoots free throws. One does it visually. And they shoot 500 free throws, both of them, actual free throws, visualized free throws. By the end of that, who is better at free throws? The people actually doing it or the people visualizing it? Study's been duplicated over and over and over. They found there's virtually no difference to the people actually doing it and the people visualizing it. I'll give you another example of this. John McCain. John McCain was a prisoner of war. Does anybody know what John McCain did as a prisoner of war, what he did to when he was stuck in that bamboo cage for years? What did he do every day in that bamboo cage? What did he do every single? Very good, you guys. Bob's got it. Tom's got it. He golfed. He golfed on the course on his base. When he got back and he recovered and got out of the hospital, one of the first things he did was go golf on that course. So he had been a prisoner of war for years, basically emaciated, went to the hospital, got recovered, came back. First time on the course, he was within a couple of strokes of his best game on that course, first time out. So that's the power of visualizing. So guys, should you visualize your meetings? You should have 21-point checklist 21-point checklist meetings in your head if you're serious about making your goal. Conduct the right number of meetings a month. Remember here 2 months ago, we went through, you reverse it, you figure out how many, again, not everybody wants to make $1 million. Not everybody wants to make $1 million. Maybe you want to make 300,000. Maybe you want to make 500,000, 800,000, $1 million. Maybe you want to make 2 million. The way you do that is what? You reverse engineer it. If you don't know how to reverse engineer it, we did that a couple of months ago on a coaching call. You figure out what you want to make. You go back and see how many people what's my average client size? Okay, that's my average client size. So how many clients do I need to bring in? How much marketing do I have to do to bring that many clients? So you just reverse engineer it, and then you make a system to accomplish that. If you ever want to do that, I will sit down with you, or we can. You can send us an email. If you don't want to sit down with me, we can shoot you that coaching call that walks you through how to do that again. And then do your daily activities. So what's some examples of daily activities you could use with our system that would make you $1 million a year? What are some examples? 15-minute drill. Thank you, Tom. What else? Every 2 weeks, I send out what? So if you haven't been doing, if I talk to an advisor and he has not been doing, oops, get back up here. If somebody has not been even doing this, that only occurs every other week, only takes you about 10 minutes to do it, how serious is that person about making the most that he can make? That's only every 2 weeks. And if you're really serious, then yes, doing the 15-minute drill is what's going to make you as much as you want. So you got to embrace grit. You got to embrace grit. We all know the Rocky story. But guys, have there been real Rockies in real life that basically were underdogs, had everything in life against them, and they were still able to make it to the top? Is this a mythical? Yes, it's mythical. Yes, it's romanticized. But are there other athletes, other business people that basically went through the same process? Yes. And how did they do that? They embraced the grit. You must embrace the daily grind to develop the grit to hit your goal. It's not the great days that make us great. Hey, it's easy to go to work when things are going well. What makes us great is doing what we're supposed to do on the bad days when we want to give up. You still get in the morning. You still do your 15-minute drill. You still work on your scripts. You still do all the things that you would normally do, even though it's a bad day. Duckworth, the person who wrote that book, Grit, points out that two factors that contribute to grit are passion and perseverance. Passion is that overarching purpose, the love of what you do that gets you out of bed, excited as a kid going to run to an amusement park. The overarching purpose is not your goal, but it's something bigger. It's not obtaining $100 million of assets under management, but also helping others financial services. It's not only winning a title, but becoming the absolute best you can be in your sport. See, that's what I looked at. I mean, I looked at what I did. The reason I kept such great stats and knew exactly how many people I had closed and how many I didn't close is why. This became my sport. Instead of playing softball, this is what I did. Instead of playing racquetball, this is what I did. So I kept stats on exactly how well I did. That's why I reviewed the tapes. This was my sport. Now, she's saying you have to have an overarching purpose or goal. Here's the thing. I wanted to help people when I was making $50 grand a year. I wanted to help people when I was making $1 million a year. So I understand she says you have to have a passion to help people. That's not what did it for me. I came from a lower economic background. I do not have a college degree. I always felt like I was the second-class citizen. So guess what my goal was? I wanted to make $1 million. He's saying, hey, that shouldn't be the goal. Well, you know, for me, it was I wanted to make $1 million. And I wanted to do it to overcome the fact that I didn't have a college degree. I wanted to overcome the fact that, you know, I came from a poor background. I wanted to do that. That was my goal, to make $1 million a year. And it was my passion. That's what allowed me to do the things that I needed to do. So how many of my coaching clients made $1 million a year, 2 years in a row? That's the funny thing. So what would you guess, guys? In 20 years, I've had many advisors who came on and they were only making $100 grand a year, and 3 years later they're making $1 million, or they're making $300,000 a year, and within 2 years they're making $1 million too. But here's the question I have for you: how many of them made over $1 million a year, 2 years in a row? What would your guess be? Tom's got it right. Anybody else? What's your guess? How many made $1 million a year, 2 years in a row? So I got 0, all, and 90. None of them did. 0. Now, why? Why would they make $1 million a year and not do it 2 years in a row? Because once they how many of them spent that $1 million, do you think, in that year? How many spent that $1 million a year? None of them did. So they did it the same. That's right. They lost their passion. They did it the same reason I did. They wanted to make $1 million a year. They wanted to make $1 million a year. And then my next goal after that was I wanted to pay $1 million. Believe it or not, I wanted to pay $1 million in taxes. And I made that goal as well. Because if you're paying $1 million in taxes, guess how much money you've made? So, but then once you make that $1 million, guess what they did instead? They traded the $1 million a year, and guess what they did? They only worked about half. They were working 20 hours a week, making $600,000-$700,000 a year. So instead of, once they made that $1 million, once they figured out the system, they didn't want to work 40 hours a week anymore. They said, if I have to work 40 hours a week to make $1 million, I'd rather work 20 hours a week and make $700,000. Is that a good trade-off, guys? So they didn't make $1 million, not because they didn't want to. It's just like, once they figured it out, once they made $1 million, they said, I know how to do this. If I ever want to do it again, I can do it. But boy, I would much rather work 20 hours a week and make $700,000 a year. So that's what they did. So should I be cool with that? Yes, I am absolutely cool with that, because they got what they wanted. They're still helping clients. They're still doing the right thing. It's just they didn't have the passion to make $1 million. Now they had a passion to what? Use their abilities to live the perfect lifestyle. Make it, and again, now working 20 hours a week, making $700,000 is not a bad life, is it? See, passion makes you crack open the book, not because your manager told you to, to earn a designation, but because you are fascinated by the special needs planning or charitable lead, whatever your specialty is. Guess how well all these guys made a year. Guess how well they knew the 21-point checklist. If I listened to all of their meetings, if I listened to all their 21-point checklist meetings, and I would go in, say, 45 minutes into the meeting, they would all be within 1 or 2 minutes of the script. I mean, they all had it down, nailed, backwards and forwards. And that's what allowed them to then say, well, to make $1 million, I needed to bring on 50 clients. Well, this year I don't need to bring on 50 clients. I bring on 25, and I'll still make $600,000-700,000. So this is why your friends who are engineers spend their free time building things or playing with machinery, because the greatest professionals in any space have an all-consuming desire to master that thing. It is more than a talent, more than a curiosity. It is a love of the subject or of that particular game. Guys, how do I love sales training? Do I love the communication? Do I love motivational interviewing and talking about that? Just based on these calls, do you think I love that, or I have a passion for that, or it bores the heck out of me? Yes, I love that stuff. And I loved it when I was learning it. When I went from making 50 to 350, I loved it. I was like, this is awesome. This is awesome. People, you can have people say exactly what you want them to say. And again, I could have used that for the dark side, but because I was doing so many things I didn't get paid for, it made me feel better about myself. Because you can use these skills to be bad, to be a bad person too. But we train you. The reason we have the 21-point checklist is because, remember, we do all that the things we don't get paid for that make us better than all the other advisors out there. We are the people on the white horse. Otherwise, it would be bad to be able to have these skills to get people to do what we want them to do, but and not put them in better positions. As Frederick Nietzsche observed, a person with a strong enough why can overcome any how. And my why was why. I want to make $1 million a year. Why? Because I didn't have a college degree. And remember, my wife has a PhD. So all of our friends were graduate, all had graduate degrees. All, we had medical doctors. That's who we hung out with. But I always felt like I was a second-class citizen, not because they treated me badly, but because I felt like I was not as educated as them, that I was not as smart as them. So that was my why. I want to make $1 million a year. That was my why, and that overcame all the hurdles I had to overcome. See, anyone can be a Superman or Wonder Woman for a day. Anyone who can write a $50,000 premium case or stumble across a multi-million-dollar rollover. The superpower is to do it every day, not just once, but like clockwork. Guys, I had one doctor as a client. Otherwise, were my clients wealthy or were they middle-class Americans? Engineers, nurses, and teachers. They weren't poor, but were they rich? No, they were right in the middle. So I didn't make $1 million a year by chasing wealthy people. It was doing the same thing over and over and over again for middle-class people. To be successful, you don't have to be different. You simply have to be what most people are not. Consistent. Did I listen to my tapes when I felt like it? No, I listened to them every single meeting. I listened to it, and I didn't listen to it for 15 minutes. I listened to it from front to back every single time until I got up to the first year, and then I went to only looking for things, spending maybe an hour on it a day the second year, then only 50 minutes a day the third year. So, but to get to the point where I was making close to $1 million a year, how many times did I do that? And again, it was like a religion to me. So famous failures. I mean, we have Bill Gates was a Harvard University dropout, and his first business, Trafo Data, was a failure. I mean, this is a failure. Lincoln failed. Einstein failed. Michael Jordan failed. Steve Jobs failed. Edison failed. Oprah failed. The Beatles failed. Marilyn Monroe failed. Kentucky Fried Chicken Colonel, he didn't make it till he was in his 50s, 60s. Henry Ford, all these people failed, but then what did they do? They picked themselves and did it all over again. So to write a $250,000 premium case, you need to be lucky. To write a $100,000 case every single week, you need to be focused. My average client size was $225,000 back when I made $1 million. $225,000. I wasn't running across these kind of cases. I was writing these cases over and over and over. Doing all the little things that aren't sexy, such as prospecting, phoning, are part of the grind. Persistence is doing the same thing over and over, like an athlete repeating their drills over and over and over, a musician playing the same scales over and over and over. These are the things that eventually get them playing sold-out stadiums. Doing your 15-minute drill, learning those scripts over and over and over, and then getting even better at them, and even better. That's what gets them better. I mean, Michael Jordan is an example of this. I think a better example of this is Larry Bird. Guys, Michael Jordan was gifted. He was a gifted athlete, and he did train. He did practice. We've all heard that. But here's the difference. Was Larry Bird a gifted athlete? Well, as compared to us, to me, yes, he was a gifted athlete compared to me. But was he a gifted athlete compared to? I mean, look at this athleticism compared to this. Which guy looks more athletic, this guy or this guy? So why then was Larry Bird such an awesome player? Because he was not as athletic as nearly anybody else on that court. You know, we say the same thing for Brady. Was Tom Brady the best athlete on the field? So I think Tom Brady and Larry Bird are two great examples. Yeah, they have some athleticism, but they are nowhere near the best athletes on the court or on the field anytime they're out there. So what made them so great? Somebody else said game intelligence. Yes, and how did they get that game intelligence, Tom? How did they attain that game intelligence? Naturally? Practice, practice, practice. Film, film, film. Practice again. Film, learn, film, practice, film, learn. Say over determination, right? Grit. There's a well-known adage among champions in all fields. Boring is beautiful. Professional golfers, how many practice swings have they taken in their life? Even if they're on the circuit and they're playing, do they still go out and practice? And I can't remember, Jeff used to tell this story, I forget what golfer it was. It was one of the older golfers, whether it was Lee Trevino, Arnold Palmer, or it was one of the older golfers, but and he was taking practice swings. He was driving before the match. He was taking all these swings, and they have the gallery around that. And every time he would take a swing, one of the peanut gallery would say, "Oh, I wish I could take a swing like that." And then he would take another swing. He's like, "Oh, geez, I would give my left hand to be able to swing like that." So every time the golf, again, sorry for not remembering there was a really famous older golfer. And the guy in the peanut gallery kept saying that. And finally, the golfer had enough. And he goes, Bob's saying it's Gary Player. Thank you, Bob. So finally, Gary walks up to the guy and says, enough, enough, enough. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. Because if you did, you would have hit the not thousands, not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but millions of times I swung a club when I had blisters that were bleeding and still was swinging club, practicing myself, spending all day long, 10 hours, driving balls, working on my putting. So quit saying that you would give anything, because you would not give anything, because you've never done it. If you'd given everything, you may be sitting here doing what I'm doing now. The other example I give that, and remember when I talked about that motivational speaker, what he did was he took, somebody wanted to be successful. He said, I'll make you successful. And so he said, meet me at the beach. Meet me at the beach tomorrow. So he meets him at the beach. And they walk in. He says, come with me. And he walks him into the ocean. He walks him up to his knees, then up to his waist, then up to his shoulders. And then he dunks the guy. This guy, this motivational speaker, is a big dude. And he dunks the guy, and he holds him under, and he holds him under, and that guy's struggling. And the guy's holding him under. He's struggling. And right before the guy passes out, he lets him come up. And the guy's, what the heck are you doing? You almost killed me. Blah, 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 blah. And the motivational speaker said, well, how much did you want to breathe? What do you mean how much? You nearly killed me. Of course I wanted to breathe. Blah, blah, blah. Because as soon as you want something that bad, guess what? When you want something that bad, you will be successful. There's nothing that will prevent you from being successful if you want it that bad. See, if Larry Bird lost a game, the next morning he'd make 1,000 free throws. What did he do if he won a game? So if he lost the game, he's going to do 1,000 free throws. What did he do if he was going to win? He did the same thing. Larry the Legend scored 40 points in a blowout win. The next morning he was there sinking 100 free throws. He did the same thing over. And was this fun? Do you think this is really fun for him to do? No. Boring. Boring is beautiful. Now the writer of this insurance news, he's actually a financial advisor who is writing about grit. He said, I once lost a 6-figure premium case and underwriting bill, but still got my new appointment and 5 introductions that day. So just because he lost that case didn't mean he stopped, went home, cried in his beer. He went and continued to follow his system and did the same things he did every single day. Then I trained the next morning, got my new appointment introductions, just like on the days I won the 6-figure figure premium case. Persistence. He did the same thing over and over and over. Guys, doing your 15-minute drill over and over and over, learning the scripts and then going back and relearning them again over and over and over. Do I ever stop learning the scripts? I do not, and I created the scripts. And I've been doing that over 25 years. I still go back and learn the scripts. Why? Because we get lazy. We take shortcuts. We forget things that we already knew. Grit is not sexy, but the results are, because champions keep doing what they need to do even when they get knocked down by life. Underwriting, bad luck, bad timing, etc. A bad meeting or a bad day or even a bad month is not enough to make champions quit. You know, an example is Tiger Woods. How many times has he been knocked down? Now, it looks like he's finally gotten too old. So this time he got knocked down. I think he's going to have difficulty coming back. But how many times did Tiger Woods get knocked down and still come back to be? And did he do that? Did he do that simply because he's fantastic? He is fantastic. But there's a lot of fantastic golfers on the tour. But all those times he got knocked down, what did he do? Did he just a lollygag to come back, or did he work twice as hard to come back even better? That's what champions do. Just because you had a bad January or a behind for the year so far doesn't mean that you're done any more than losing the first round of a fight means the fight is over. You can pick, if you've fallen off the horse, you can get right back on the horse. Show up and fight. What does your activity plan for this year call for you to do to hit your goal? What are you supposed to do today? It is that simple. Then do it again and again. Do it 90 days in a row. And then when you do it 90 days in a row, it'll become a habit and you'll be on pace for the year again. It may not be easy, but it really is that simple. It really is that simple. So guys, in your toolbox, you have the 15-minute drill. How long? I'll give a little quiz here, guys. How many pages? Not covering the cover page, not counting cover pages. How many pages is the 15-minute drill? I hope you all give me the answer to this, even within a couple pages. If you have the answer, even if you hit within a couple of pages, how many pages is a 15-minute drill manual on how to do a 15-minute drill? How many pages is that? Ben's got it. Good job, Ben. Mr. Hicks has it. Yes, it's 3 pages long. It's 3 pages long. So the 15-minute, and these are actual recordings of advisors with their clients and little learning things. So how many of you have been through all of these? This is how you learn from other people's mistakes. So the first 15-minute drill, 1 page is the cover page, 2nd page, 3rd page. That's it. 1, 2, 3. So let's look at how you do a 15-minute drill. And I say, this is a true test as to how serious you take your business. If you can't invest 15 minutes a day, what does that say about the seriousness? If your son went and said, I want to be in the starting team, football team, or I want to be on the starting baseball team, or I want to be on the starting basketball team, but he couldn't even spend 15 minutes doing drills a day, what would you tell your son or your daughter? What would you tell your son or daughter? They wouldn't even spend 15 minutes a day training at shooting free throws. And then they're bitching about not being able to be on the starting team. What would you tell them? They deserve or don't deserve to be on that team. If they won't invest 15 minutes. So guys, this is how serious it is you take your business. So how do you do it? There's nothing more important than this 15-minute drill at the beginning of your day. Why? Because even if you've had a bad day, even if everything fell through, if you do the 15-minute drill, what can you tell yourself at the end of the day? I may have lost that $250,000 case. I may have lost that $1 million case, $250,000 case. I may not have made an appointment day, but at least I got a little what? Better. My skills got a little better. Every single day you do 20 or a 15-minute drill, your skills are going to get a little bit better. You're going to get 1% better at what you do. And guys, if you get 1% better at what you do every single day, how much of a difference is that going to be by the end of the year? So get a tape. Get a tape of yourself. The best thing is get a tape of yourself doing a 21-point checklist with the client. If you don't have that, get a tape of yourself doing a first meeting with the client. If you don't have that, get a tape of yourself doing a FIA presentation with a client. If you don't have that, tape yourself doing an interview. If you don't have that, tape yourself having a conversation with any human being or alien. Get a tape of you talking to somebody else. And then review it. Because the skills I teach you with gotzing people, using motivational interviewing, does it only work in a sales process or does it work in everyday life? It works with your spouse, works with your teenage son, works with the maitre d', it works with the dry cleaner who lost your clothing. These things work. So get a tape. You listen to yourself. Grab that recording. Listen until you find a spot that could be improved. Turn off the recording. Reverse the tape. Hear what the client said that triggered this opportunity to enhance your skills. Reverse maybe 5 seconds. Then say out loud what you should have said instead. A better response. Then reverse the tape. 5 seconds. Say a response again. Reverse the tape. Do the same thing over and over. You're going to actually, that one little spot on the tape, you're going to do that over and over and over, maybe 30 times, 40 times in that 15 minutes. So maybe the rest of your meeting sucks going forward, but that part, that one thing, will you ever screw that up again? No. And that's what I did over and over and over. That's what all the guys who have made $1 million a year have done over and over and over. They do the 15-minute drill. They do what other guys will not do. So what can you be listening for in the tape? Well, am I gotzing them? Am I agreeing with them? Am I parroting back? Am I empowering? Am I making statements or am I asking questions? Am I asking closed-ended questions or open-ended questions? Am I talking over the top of them? Am I not laughing or acknowledging when they say something that they think is funny? Am I falling on the sword when they answer a question wrong or when they get confused and they don't answer because they're confused or uncertain? When they answer wrong, do I correct them? Am I saying things, misunderstanding what a client has said? Oops. Am I missing qualifying language when they say maybe? I can see what you're saying. I see why you might say that. I mean, are they using qualifying language? The client doesn't state the motive am I not getting the client to state the motive at the end of the scripts? Am I not recognizing addressing the client when it becomes disagreeable or ornery? See, these are the things you can get. Guys, when you're awesome at these things, how much money are you going to make? If you are awesome at these things, how much money are you going to make? And here's the great thing about the 15-minute drill. Do you see anything in here, learn the scripts? Do I say learn the scripts in here? Is there anything in here about learning scripts? Yes or no? Anything in here about learning scripts? No. If I was going to choose between being awesome at the scripts or being awesome at these skills, which would I rather be? Awesome at the scripts or awesome at these skills? These skills. These are communication skills that will work for getting people to move their mind to you. It'll work for getting your wife no longer mad at you. It'll work for getting your teenage son or daughter to quit being so ornery with you. These are communication skills, and when you are awesome at these skills, people will follow your directions. They will let you lead when you are awesome at these skills. Guys, spend 15 minutes a day doing this just to be a better husband, to be a better human being, to be a better dad, to be a better coach. And my gosh, why not use these skills to make more money? Because once you know these things, once you've invested 15 minutes a day, do you have to work harder to make money then? Do you have to see more people to make money? No. You see the same number of people, it's just more of them close one. More people move all their money to you. Guys, this is about working smarter, not working harder. And when you have these skills, are you afraid to spend money on marketing? No, because when you have these skills, guess what? Marketing becomes a cash machine for you. Every time you do a seminar, you know you're going to get a bunch of people to make appointments. And of those bunch of people, you got a bunch of them to move all their money to you. Being awesome at these skills turns your business into a cash machine. Like I said, some people wanted to make $1 million a year with this cash machine, but then once they made it, they said, okay, I made it. Now I'm just going to work half-time and make 60, 70% of the same as what I was making before. It doesn't matter what your goals are, but if you want to make more money and you're not spending 50 minutes a day doing it, then you're kidding yourself. Does that make sense? So I'm getting a little preachy here, but guys, if you want to make more, if you don't want to make more money, that's cool. But if you want to make more money, it's grit, it's the scripts, it's a 15-minute drill. That's our free throws. That's our watching the films. That's what's going to make you as much money as you want to make in this business. Make sense? So do you forgive me for being on my soapbox and a little preachy today? Because it's these things that will allow you to achieve everything that you want to achieve. Make sense? Awesome possum. Well, then you guys have a fantastic rest of the week. But please do these things. Put them in your calendar. Do them. Have the grit. Put it on your calendar. Do the boring things. It's what will make a beautiful practice and a beautiful life for you. Thanks, guys. Have a very great week, and we will talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.